we are going to try to approach it the same way we did. You can make it an egg. In this case, they made it an oval, but you could try to go for the egg shape. Once again, I recommend doing this as big as possible. And I found this quote that is beautiful, where we look for formulas in order to make our drawing process a little bit easier. Formulas that can repeat and we could use over and over. When drawing portraits, what you want to look for are not the formulas that can repeat, but the differences from one person to the next. Even though we're looking at eyes, nose, mouth, the very tiny little differences that you can find, even in twins, are the things that you should be looking at. Not everything that's always exactly the same, but how do I figure out the differences? And in a way, it is what the great masters knew how to do. But these basic formulas, and I'm talking about this one here, where you know the eyes, and we're going to talk about this a little more in depth. Give you a measurement where you could pretty much line up. Notice how these lines, and I'm talking about the temporal line, the side of the face here, they're actually placed there. The distance from one eye to the other, we're going to touch on that, and that's going to be very simple. There are formulas that tell us that the size of one eye is the same as the distance between one eye and the other. So however big this eye and this eye are, that same size is the equal to the distance. Like I said, this is not necessary. It's a helpful little formula, but doesn't necessarily mean it's true. From one portrait to the next, you might find that you need to make adjustments. Having the knowledge of it, it's great, but applying it as a rule, it's not necessarily the best thing that you can do. I'm going to just do a little bit of very simple lines as an eyebrow. For the eyes, I'm just doing a top, bottom curved line as an eyelid. And I'm doing it on both sides simultaneous as I do a lower lid. And I just give it a quick iris. Notice that these lines, keep them as simple as possible. And pay attention how your brain is seeing this, because we already see a face. We could almost begin to put an identity on, oh my God, it looks like so-and-so. Our brains are excellent at doing that. What we want to know is, again, thinking about the structure that we just did. Remember that keystone? Remember that bridge of the nose and how it runs down halfway to here, which would be the bottom of our nose. And I could just do a couple of lines. Sometimes just even dots. Give it a little bit of the structure of the bone here, giving you a lot of character. And then halfway between here and here, I'm going to do the bottom of the lip and the line of the mouth. Now, these are the small variations. With some of these guides, you come very, very close and you could hardly miss. But it's finding those subtle differences from one subject to the next that are going to make you really capture the personality, the likeness of your portrait. So this is another one to practice. And I just want to do one. I'm going to go back here to our egg head page here. And this is something that, notice, if I find halfway, and if I were just to do this, I'm right there, very close to a finished portrait. just by adding a couple of elements, I could really quickly begin to refine this into something. And again, we're talking about lights and shadows and all of the things that we will be touching on. But just this basic, simple formula that you can apply no matter as long as you have the shape and the measurements, you can begin to have very, very close to what begins to be a portrait. And again, we're not going for full realistic type portraits. We're going to deal with different styles. So I hope that everybody got this one. Very, very helpful. We're going to move to the next one, which is the sideway view. And again, we kind of saw this with the skull sideways. Same thing. We're going to do the two ovals or two eggs. I want to make sure I give myself a little bit of space here. So I want to keep it maybe just, I see a line. Don't have to actually draw it. Give myself one egg. Very light lines. At this point, you know where you're going, so you don't have to make these lines too dark. But I hope you guys can see this. Maybe it's too light. And that's what you want, actually. If I zoom in, now you can see them. And stage one, you would want to be here because every line you begin to add, I know my forehead's not going to be here. So I just make a correction. It could be here. So as I darken my lines or switch my pencil, I don't have to erase and I still have control over my drawing. Let me zoom out just a little bit right there. This thing is moving a little bit. There we go. And a little bit this way. Okay, so what we're going to do next is a couple of things. I'm going to just refine this here, round it out, and round out the front, just so I can have visually a way to measure this. And same thing. What I'm going to want to do here is find the middle, estimate. I have this line up here, the top of my head, the bottom of my chin here, and I'm going to estimate right there as the halfway point. Let me check it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want it too much off, so it's a little bit higher. And you don't have to do a line before you measure. You could just do a mark. Measure to that mark and then have your line. And once I have that, now this is telling us, this is from a very famous drawing book by Hogarth. And a lot of these formulas, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they came up with these academic ways of drawing the portrait, the head. This, again, is going to be your crucial measurement. That if you notice, it points us right to the top of the eye. Let's go ahead and do a couple of features here. So I want you to find that in relationship to this line, we have that keystone, that bridge of the nose that takes us right up into the forehead, and then the little roundness and the actual forehead. Notice how I darken this, and this is going to be crucial. Reminder, we're still using the overhand or the underhand grip. Now from here, I'm going to leave the nose undone, and I'll tell you why. Because what I want to do is I want to find the halfway between the middle and the bottom in order to know where I need to go next. And then halfway between that and that. And my nose is going to get right into here. So I found the middle point between the halfway point and the bottom, which would be a quarter of the way, and it's this line here. And that line points me to the bottom of the nose right there. Or just the ridge of the nostril. And it depends on how far out and the features of the nose, which we will really go into in the next couple weeks. A line for the nostril, for the side. And then that takes me right into the lip. Remember, the halfway between that line and this one at the bottom would be the bottom lip or the middle of the mouth. Again, depending on the differences, we want to take the lip. There's the middle of my mouth, and there's the bottom of my lip. And we take that right into the ridge and the chin. Now I could just add the eyebrow. I want to add the upper lid. And the side view of the eye. And remember, we will get into this a lot more. All of these details, we're going to draw lots and lots of eyes. So for now, you just, again, they're not even half circles. They're just like small little, not even letter C's. And one final one. If I take the distance from here, the bottom of my chin, to the corner of the eye, the distance between here and there should be the distance between the edge of the eye and my ear. So this is where my ear goes. How did I do that again? I found the distance from here to here. And if I measure it, that is the distance from here to here. Once again, it's just a helpful rule. And if we were to do that, the back of the ear here, I got to find the angle of it. Usually the lower lobe of the ear lines up with the bottom of the nose, and the upper part of the ear just above the eye, almost the eyebrow. And you'll realize that, yep, it does look somewhat proportional. And now you notice the distance between that and the back of the head, we begin to have a portrait. So some of these very basic measurements, remember, it's finding that halfway and getting familiar with the circular, oval, egg shapes, how to piece them together, and then finding those elements, those lines where you can place your elements with confidence. That will be very, very handy.